Hello, New Brunswick. I'm Charlie Cradaville, and welcome to the New Brunswick Today show for today, December 10th, 2019. Thank you for joining us. We've got a special show for you, all about our top story, a saga that we like to call Watergate, corruption at the New Brunswick water utility. Now, we broke some big news this year that authorities had been keeping under wraps as their widening investigation into a $500,000 city government scheme continued. Plus, two longtime water utility employees were imprisoned this fall, making them just the latest members of that conspiracy to face consequences for their roles in the scheme. Here are photographs we obtained of these two inmates from the New Jersey Department of Corrections. This is Billy Ortiz and Joseph DeBonis. They both have multiple family members that are part of the New Brunswick government structure, and they're also currently residing in the Central Reception and Assignment Facility in Trenton. That's a prison there in Trenton that you might have seen. And, you know, the case against them was made by state investigators, not local or county folks. And those state investigators secured their indictments at the Mercer County Courthouse in Trenton because it was a state case. And although the next phase of the case started in New Brunswick, in Middlesex County, the case was actually moved to Union County after New Brunswick Today raised concerns about conflicts of interest in the courthouse there. So here is some footage. New Brunswick Today was there at Union County Courthouse when Mr. DeBonis and Mr. Ortiz were finally taken into custody after their long-awaited sentencing on October 4th. This was a long time coming. They had pled guilty to the crimes about a year and a half earlier, but they were free men until this sentencing proceeding that you're seeing here. That was Mr. Ortiz going away, and then this here is Mr. DeBonis accepting his sentence and going off with the Union County Sheriff's officers to be imprisoned. The two men were both each sentenced to the mandatory minimum term of 5 years in state prison, but they may be released much sooner thanks to their apparent cooperation with the agency investigating the scheme. You saw Mr. DeBonis there was in good spirits as he was going away. He was a clerk for the water utility, and he illegally lowered people's water and sewer bills by as much as 90% in exchange for bribes. And Ortiz, a water meter reader, would actually collect cash in exchange for those unlawful discounts. Ortiz even fixed up some of his bribers with phony water meters that wouldn't register any of the water used. That was a device that he apparently nicknamed the Thief, according to the Attorney General's office, and we'll have a little bit more on that for you later. But those cold, hard cash bribes that Ortiz and DeBonis collected and divvied up ultimately cost the rest of the city some $500,000 in lost revenue, according to the New Jersey Attorney General's office. And Attorney General Gurbir Grewal said, quote, "By taking bribes and allowing customers to steal up to $500,000 in city utility services, DeBonis and Ortiz profited at the expense of city residents," and that is absolutely the case. I hear from a lot of folks who are complaining about their high water bills that they're getting. Well, part of the reason that your water bills are high is because the city lost $500,000 in this criminal scheme. But it doesn't seem likely that our victimized city will be made whole, at least not anytime soon. After the men pleaded guilty in April 2018, Mayor James Cahill avoided our questions for several days. We asked him for a comment about the guilty pleas of these men who are now more than a dozen folks in the mayor's administration have pled guilty or been found guilty of crimes. He didn't respond to us, so we had to track him down. He forced us to find him, and we caught up with him in City Hall. He's been the mayor since 1991, and here's what he had to say about this case.
Hey, Mr. Mayor.
Charlie,
How are you, sir?
What, you filming me?
Yes.
How come?
I need to know if you have any comment on Mr. DeBonis and Mr. Ortiz pleading guilty.
Well, I'm glad the case is wrapping up, and we're looking forward to the city's recoupment of the funds that it was cheated out of.
Right. And what is the city doing to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Well, we've put in place a lot of redundancy. procedures and policies, all new staff, and a complete audit of the things that we've looked at that they were doing. So we feel we're pretty much on top of it.
Okay.
So you heard the mayor tell me there that he was, quote, looking forward to recouping the funds the city was cheated out of. And unfortunately, according to City Administrator Dan Teresi, the New Brunswick city government has only received a total of $14,355.87 in restitution as of the date that Mr. DeBonis and Mr. Ortiz were imprisoned. It's a far cry from the missing $500,000, and it's doubtful that Ortiz and DeBonis are going to be able to pay any more because they are now incarcerated. So that's really about $485,000 that the city has lost and doesn't have much hope for getting back. But of course, 3 days after Mr. DeBonis and Mr. Ortiz were sentenced and imprisoned, yet another New Brunswick water utility official found himself in that very same courtroom in Elizabeth, and our camera was there yet again to capture it. So this is Guillermo Quinones. He's a water utility employee, and he is joined in this new indictment by two New Brunswick landlords. You see them all there on their way out. Domitilo Carrion and Maritza Martinez are the names of the two landlords. Each of these three face criminal counts of conspiracy, official misconduct, theft by unlawful taking, and tampering with public records or information. Now, New Brunswick Today was the first and still is the only media outlet to have reported on these indictments, which were handed up quietly on September 16th, but were not publicized by authorities. Mr. Quinones is suspended without pay from his job, again, as a water meter reader. It's a position he's held since 2008, and he's, of course, the third city official to be charged in this particular case. You just saw the first two go off to prison, but he's also the fourth water utility employee to be prosecuted for his crimes in the past 5 years. And we'll get to the other one in just a bit. The new indictments accuse Quinones and the two local landlords of conspiring to falsify their water and sewer bills and rip off the rest of New Brunswick. The alleged wrongdoing took place during a nearly 6-year period beginning in February 2011, according to the 7-count indictment. And according to property records, they do own quite a bit of property and probably do have some significant water bills to pay. Carrion owns 7 properties in New Brunswick, including homes on Welton, Seaman, Handy, and Baldwin Streets, as well as Jersey, Lee, and Troop Avenues. Meanwhile, Martinez owns 2 properties in the hub city, including the one on Baldwin Street that court records list as her residence, and she also owns another one on Lee Avenue. So the court records seem to indicate, though, that there may be as many as 15 additional unindicted co-conspirators in this case. It's not clear if they're going to face criminal consequences for their action, and their identities are not yet known. So this is something we're looking into. We've wanted to know the whole time. Who are the landlords who were paying bribes to the water utility workers to get favorable treatment, unfair discounts? And it appears that there are a number of folks. We're not sure if they're folks who paid the bribes or folks who took the bribes, allegedly, but they are at least 15 unindicted co-conspirators, it appears, in this case that we haven't learned their identities yet. But either way, these Mr. Quinones and Mr. Ortiz and Mr. DeBonis are not the first criminal defendants to be water utility workers in New Brunswick. We, of course, had Edward O'Rourke, who served a sentence in state prison. He's out now, but he was caught falsifying water quality testing data, endangering the public by failing to notify us of serious problems with our drinking water on several occasions during a period of time that started in 2010. And it goes even further back before that, because there was a water director. The mayor gets to appoint whoever he likes to be in charge of the water utility. There was a man named Sean Maloney who was a close ally of Mayor Cahill. He unfortunately took his own life the same day that he found out he was a target in a federal investigation back in 2007. We have no idea what the ultimate outcome would have been had he remained alive, but there were 4 New Brunswick employees who did ultimately either plead or get found guilty in that case of federal crimes. Mr. Maloney, again, took his own life shortly after meeting with the mayor and some other city officials and finding out that there had been some subpoenas targeting his records. And the city was then left without a water director. That persisted for more than 5 years. A business administrator was just assigned to do double duty and take on more responsibilities. This was during the period of time that Edward O'Rourke was then falsifying the water quality testing records and not ensuring that the water was safe as he should have. And then apparently also at some point during this period of time, these schemes started regarding the illegal discounts and the phony water meters. And that's where this show comes into the mix. We learned about this case originally in December of 2016. The case involving Mr. Ortiz and Mr. DeBonis. The New Brunswick police announced the charges against them, even though it was an attorney general's case. And we began looking into it. We did, I published an article on it, and we had a confidential source reach out to us and give us a piece of evidence, proof of corruption. It was a water meter. This was actually a water meter that we had in our office. We did a broadcast on this show showing the water meter and how we thought it was part of this scheme because it showed 0000 on it. It had almost no reading on it. And this is a New Brunswick detective in our one-time office on Patterson Street in New Brunswick executing a search warrant to take this evidence of corruption from our news organization. This was, of course, a big controversy right there where the New Brunswick police, we felt, abused their power by getting that search warrant and coming after us in that way. We have never seen this water meter again, but the Attorney General's office in their statements sure seemed to describe a scheme very similar to what we were alleging on this program. Again, that was back in December 2016. Time flies. This was December the 20th when this infamous search warrant was executed. And there you see Detective Brandon Epstein and Detective Harry Theory Lemmerling in our office taking that water meter from us. And again, we have not seen it in a long time. We miss it. We would like it back. But at the end of the day, we are pleased to see the case moving forward and some people being held accountable. Unfortunately, the folks that we just showed you being imprisoned are going to get a pretty favorable deal from that Attorney General's office because they apparently cooperated with the investigation. And now we're seeing an additional defendant from the water utility, as well as finally, for the first time, some of these landlords being here brought into court. Of course, the original case started with Mr. Andres Minaya. He was a boss of a temporary agency, a temp agency in New Brunswick, and Mr. Minaya, his wife, and another relative of his were all in legal trouble. He was facing as much as 20 years in prison for insurance fraud, and he was supposedly the one who, to get a favorable deal, told the Attorney General's office that he knew ways to get illegal discounts from the New Brunswick water utility, and he kind of wore a wire and set up his own handyman. That handyman ended up cooperating and ended up giving the Attorney General's office some evidence they were able to then use against DeBonis and Ortiz. And then, again, DeBonis and Ortiz spent some significant amount of time cooperating to get favorable sentences for themselves, and that's possibly what led to Mr. Quinones being brought into court again this year. So it's a story that has kind of taken a number of wild turns. It's not over yet. We still have these unindicted co-conspirators to worry about, and also the potential trial of Mr. Quinones, as well as Ms. Martinez and Mr. Carrion, the first two landlords to actually face charges for this type of scheme. We want to keep you posted on this. We want to keep fighting for you. And I think you all know that when it comes to hyperlocal news about the issues that matter to you, things like corruption in our government, things like the integrity of our elections, things like the quality of our drinking water, you can count on NBT to give you the full story. But we need to count on you to keep New Brunswick Today alive and well in 2020. And it's real easy to help. We are doing our annual fundraising drive, and you can see right up there, you can donate today at our phenomenal new website. The donation widget is on every page on the site, but you can also just go straight to newbrunswicktoday.com/donate. And that's where you can make your contribution to help us stay alive and well into 2020 so we can keep covering this story and so many others that matter to you. Thank you to all of you for reading, for watching, for listening, for supporting. And please do, if you have the funds to contribute, become a monthly donor so that we can continue to count on you to keep this operation going strong, produce more articles, more videos, more podcasts, and ultimately give you the straight story on the city that we all love. So please do that for us. And thank you so much to the team here, Eyes on New Jersey, for helping us do this broadcast. It's great working with you. It's great working with our whole team. We're so happy to be able to be broadcasting live using this wonderful platform to give you the news. And we hope to do it again real soon. So please help us help you. And thank you for joining us today. We'll be doing a lot more of these shows as we move into the new year. Have a happy holiday and a happy new year.